Welcome to our podcast, The Words That Make Us.
Consider this time with us as your excuse to take a break from everything.
Every episode, we choose a word that makes us think, wonder, or dream. We read a range of texts that explore different aspects of this word.
And we let our thoughts wander. We hope that yours will too. So grab your favourite tea.
Or a beer.
And join me, Rama
And me, Tony Bailey. Let's go!
So today's episode is about food. So Tony, how are you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was really good actually, but I am feeling a little bit queasy
Why?
today. Well, the place where I went to had an oyster bar.
Oh.
And I don't know about you. Do you like, oysters? But I did have a couple of oysters, and on the one hand, I did really like them, but this morning I'm feeling a little bit nauseous.
Yeah, I mean, they're funny. They're funny oysters. I've had them. I'm not sure.
It doesn't feel very funny right now. It feels like might need to take a toilet break during this podcast.
Yeah, no, let's hope you can hold it until the end.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like, why do you think people started eating funny things like this? It's like, who decided that, oh, look at that slimy thing inside a shell. I want to eat that.
Real quote, Jonathan Swift, the legendary Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels.
Yeah.
He was a bold man that first ate an oyster.
Exactly.
I mean, what was going through somebody's, look, there's something that looks like a big mouthful of snot in a shell. Why not taste that? It'd be nice with a bit of lemon juice.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Oh, terrible.
It's one of those things that you sort of feel like you've got to. It would be rude not to have an oyster because, it's an expensive food and it shows you've arrived. You can eat an oyster. Yeah. And yet they're just, you do everything you can not to actually eat them when you have them. You sort of hold it in your mouth. It would be bad form to chew on it, wouldn't it? Like, I'll have a good chew of this. No, you just swallow it. And you also have lemon juice or something with it to take away the taste because it tastes revolting. And then it lands in your stomach and
it starts swimming around.
And you think, is it dead? Is it still... Why am I going through this? It's like, a number of other things that you eat that you think, why did I do that?
So I was going to tell you about like some of the weirdest foods that we have in my culture, but first I wanted to ask you, like, have you eaten frog's legs?
Yes, I have eaten frog's legs. Much overrated in terms of you think, frog's legs, that's going to be disgusting like oysters. But actually it's just like very, very thin chicken. Okay. It actually tastes fine.
Oh, I don't think I would ever, no.
But come on, with your cultural background, you must have eaten a sheep's testicle or an eyeball or something.
No, I think the strangest things that I have eaten, maybe... So I am a big liver eater. I've eaten like chicken's hearts and liver and stuff. I like that.
You're an awful person.
An awful, yeah.
She's an awful person, that Rama.
But I think the strangest thing that I have eaten is the brain, a sheep's brain.
Oh,
a little bit of it. I've only tried it, and I tried it when I was
food for thought.
Very. Brilliant.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I don't think I hated it, but just knowing what it was, I think I wasn't able to enjoy it.
So tell me, if you had to compare it to any other food, what was eating brain like? See, my mind is that it's going to be really spongy.
I think it was. I can't remember, to be very honest. I was maybe 8 years old, and I really just ate one bit of it just to try it, and that will never again. If I remember correctly, the way it was cooked with vinegar and garlic, and it was quite creamy, like a pate of some kind.
Oh,
so
God.
That's how I remember it.
Not doing wonders for my stomach right now.
Adding to that. Okay, let me tell you about some strange foods in my culture that are not disgusting.
These are all foods that you've tried?
These are the foods that I've tried, and they are the best things. And actually, every time I think about them, like I go back 20 years in the past, and I remember all of, my nice childhood memories are all connected to food. So, have you ever had rose jam before?
Rose jam. That's a euphemism for something else in my culture.
No, there is not any kind of rose, but like there is a certain breed of roses that you buy like 20 kilos or 30 kilos because they're very fluffy and they don't. They don't give you that much.
I've had rose hip syrup, but that's not the same, is it?
No, it's something completely different, and it is divine. And so not only do they make jam out of it, but they also make syrup that you then dilute with water, cold water, and it's a wonderful summer drink. It's amazing.
Does it taste like perfume? Or
not like, exactly, except for that alcohol part. So it does taste like a very refreshing rose thing. Actually, it's really funny because when I went to Albania last year, at the shop they had rose drink.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. It was also almost exactly the same as my childhood. I was really surprised.
I've never drunk that. I mean, the closest I've had sort of elderflower, I suppose.
Yeah, something like that.
And I quite like that, actually.
But this is rose, and it's really fantastic.
Rose hip syrup used to be something you had as a child to, I guess it was supposed to be good for you.
Okay.
So as a small child, I remember my mother giving me rose hip syrup.
No, this is very aromatic, very aromatic and wonderful to drink. Of course, you put a lot of sugar in it as well.
Yes.
Something else that we drank in the summer was also sour grape juice. Sour grape. Yeah. You also make syrup.
Like wine, but no alcohol.
I guess, but like these are like the tiny ones before they turn into grapes, and then you make a juice out of them, and then you cook with sugar, and then you also dilute with water, and it's also so good. It's like sweet, sour, beautiful. Yeah. Oh, my mouth is watering.
Yeah.
And then there is a dish that's very famous in Syria that's meat with sour cherries and on bread.
Now, I do like the use of some fruits with meat.
Yeah.
It's not always seen as a good combination, but I get that one.
I think you would like that with parsley on top.
Yeah.
So this was something that I did not like as a child. I found it very strange.
What sort of meat would that be?
That would be lamb, exactly. But ground lamb and made into small like meatballs.
Yeah.
And then you put that syrup on top and bread and parsley. And when I was a child, I didn't like it, but now I would love to eat it because it reminds me of my childhood. It's like anything that reminds you of home.
One of my favourites is to do duck with stewed plums, sort of like a plum sauce.
Yeah, something
really,
similar.
really nice. But you could do it with cherries, or you could even do it with something like rhubarb. What are those kind of fruits or tarty things? Yeah, nice.
And then I'm going to tell you about the strangest thing. That is actually one of the most delicious things I've had in my entire life, which is aubergine jam.
Oh. There are very few foods that I don't like.
Yeah. And
aubergine is one of them. I don't know why.
I can guarantee.
I kind of guess why, but
I can guarantee that if you had this, you would love it because it's like the tiniest aubergines. Like they're literally the size of your thumb.
Okay.
And you empty the seeds out.
Yeah.
You put it in some kind of solution that hardens them.
Yeah.
And then inside, it's stuffed with walnuts, sugar, cinnamon.
That sounds good.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
It is so good.
So I probably wouldn't notice the aubergine.
No, you wouldn't. It's just something thick. It's just really good. And not everybody made it. So if you were invited somewhere and they offered you that on a small saucer, just one or two, you were considered very lucky because it's not easy to make and it's not. So this was one of my favorite
interesting
things.
connotation there, though, is that not only was the food delicious, but the fact that somebody served it to you showed that they cared about you or some sort of it's a special occasion or as a sign of love or
exactly.
Or
it really is
something.
like, look how much I value you. I'm offering you something that is really hard to make and get by. And so it's really, So
that kind of brings that in with just as a side note to our listeners, our 20th episode today.
Wow.
Well done.
I can't believe
on
it.
food. I mean, we should really have a banquet
or a
large meal to
celebrate that. Actually, let's do that.
Shall we?
Let's go
let's do
a meal.
We could serve all of those dishes apart from don't bring the brain. And I will give that a miss.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
But about nostalgia and food, like, do you also feel the same way that food makes you remember all the good times, or they're tied with your memories, or bad times?
I think when I think about my childhood, there are so many memories that involve either the food that I was eating or the meal time that I was.
Okay.
Because so many of our family scenes, I think times have changed now.
Yeah.
I don't think families sit around the table and commune together.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sitting in front of the television or people doing their own thing. But it was absolutely sacrosanct in our family.
Okay.
That we all sat, the call, everybody sit down, from my mother. And then we all congregate at the dining table and the food gets served out.
Yeah. And so you talk then? You talk about what... Okay.
And I think that's really good.
It is.
Well, whatever, sometimes it'd be really irritating. Yeah. Sometimes it'd be very funny. But we always used to do that. My mum had a background in catering, actually.
Okay.
But I wouldn't describe her as a 4-star Michelin chef.
Okay.
What she used to do was she used to run hospital kitchens.
Oh.
So that is very much at the other extreme.
That's the wrong side of catering.
Let's say that she was industrial in her approach to cuisine.
To cooking, oh goodness.
So, but I have, I still make meals now that were handed to me by my mum, but they were all of the typical northern fare. So Lancashire hot pot, shepherd's pie. You said about eating liver, and my mum was a big offal fan.
It's very healthy.
It is healthy, much underrated, but it's also really cheap. So, of course, in the hospital, that was very important.
My favourite.
So we'd regularly have liver and onions and... always staples. We always had potatoes. Every meal. Yeah. Potatoes.
Every meal. Like every day.
I don't recall having any
Big
different
meal.
things like rice or pasta until I was certainly into my mid-teens.
Okay.
My parents were so traditional. We would eat none of that foreign muck. I mean, my mum didn't sort of really experiment with Asian cuisine or Indian cuisine, or not even
Italian.
No, even now my dad doesn't see the point of pasta.
I see.
When he could have potatoes.
Wow.
Yeah. So, okay, a question for you then.
Yeah.
In terms of your kitchen, what are the 3 ingredients or the 3 things that you must have in your kitchen? Well,
I would say rice.
Okay.
Bulgur. You know bulgur?
Yeah.
Yeah. The 3... a vegetable. Any kind of vegetable is very important. I would say potatoes for sure. Garlic and onion, like, are staples. There are lots of vegetarian foods that we eat, but they will still involve something like bulgur or like tabbouleh, for example. Have you had tabbouleh before?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
It's this lovely, lovely salad, and it has some kind of bulgur in it, the couscous, or like,
I didn't know that's how you actually pronounced it. I was going to say tabbouleh or something, but tabbouleh. Tabbouleh. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So also pulses, I think.
Yeah.
And kinds of like grains. These are staples.
Yeah.
And every now and then, not now, or actually maybe in Syria now because everything's so expensive. But when I was growing up, we had meat regularly. But I think the times before that, people relied a lot on legumes to get protein and stuff.
It's interesting, the whole world of pulses and beans and stuff. Again, the closest I got to that in my childhood was a tin of baked beans.
Baked beans for breakfast, yeah?
Not for... occasionally, but, on toast.
Oh, okay.
Staple lunch, baked beans on toast. But lentils, all of those pulses.
Chickpeas.
Never. If my mum made a soup, it didn't have those things in it. It had the leftovers from Sunday lunch in it. Okay. It was, very unadventurous and very little scope. I think I told you before, I don't think I had mushrooms until I was about 14 or 15.
No way.
That was... Because I think my parents being that post-war thing, my mum always told me a story about bananas and how in the war she saw pictures of bananas and she really wanted a banana, but there were no bananas available. She'd seen the pictures in a book and she said to her dad, I really want a banana. And about 5 years after the war, finally, as rationing was starting to ease a little bit, her father brought her a banana home.
One
banana.
Wow.
And gave her this banana. She was so excited. She took one bite and hated it. And never ate another banana. She did not like bananas.
She was shocked. She expected it to be something heavenly.
She thought it was going to be amazing and all about waiting.
Oh my gosh, that's so disappointing.
Yeah. So she was not adventurous in terms of food at all.
But speaking of bananas, it's actually very interesting because I had a story for you as well. Because I grew up in Syria in the time of Hafiz al-Assad, who's the father of Bashar al-Assad, the president right now.
Yes.
And this was a time of rations and things like that. You had to go to, I don't know what they would be called, but like you had coupons, and depending on the people in your household, you would get certain things like rice.
Right.
And
when was this?
This was in the 80s.
So not long ago.
No. And then, but that was something else. The story with bananas was that apparently there was a businessman that imported bananas into Syria, and somebody from the government, somebody high up, wanted in on that business because it was a lucrative business, and he said, I want in. And he said, no, I got this kind of, what's it called?
The banana monopoly.
A monopoly, exactly. And so I'm doing this by myself. And he said, well, you know what? No, you're not. Nobody's going to eat bananas in this country anymore. So bananas were not available, I would say, in the late 80s, early 90s. Because one person decided that if I'm not part of this business, nobody eats bananas. And that's it. We didn't have them for years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Gosh.
It's crazy what can happen in a totalitarian regime, really.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say they were banned because they were phallic object, or they were... women eating them was too provocative to the men, or something like that.
That's hilarious.
I mean, you can't eat a banana without being provocative, can you? Is there a way?
No, I'm going to be super self-conscious. Now you have to like cut it to small pieces and eat it with a fork to avoid...
The growth of the food emoji to mean other things.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I can't keep up with that.
Aubergines and peaches.
What is an aubergine?
Let's not talk about it.
I don't like aubergines. Should I like aubergines for other reasons? I don't know. Very strange. So if you had to classify yourself then by today's standards, then, you know, you've got quite a lot of polar opposites now in terms of food and what kind of diet you follow. Which kind of camp are you in, or aren't you? Are you ultra healthy, meat-free, vegan?
No, I am an omnivore.
Organic, bio.
I try to go only organic if I can, especially when it comes to meat. So I know that's the most expensive thing, but eggs and meat, I try to have them organic just because of what we hear, the stories we hear about how they're raised. Yeah. Which means that I don't eat it every day then, because it's impossible. So I try to eat clean. I try to eat well. I try, for example, chocolate. I've moved away from milk chocolate to dark chocolate. So I try to clean up my diet, but every now and then I will binge. Yes. Which is terrible, but...
Yeah, it's funny how... Because I mean, compared to the diet that I probably ate 20 years ago, I definitely have changed with the times. And I feel there's quite a lot of pressure, isn't there, to be eating with one eye on the environment, one eye on the carbon footprint.
Yes.
So it is nice to buy organically produced produce, or to, you know, like you. Yeah. If you know where your meats come from, somehow you feel better about eating it than if, you know, this... I've, like you, seen the documentaries about factory farming in Texas, where the, you know, making burgers for McDonald's. It is quite horrific.
Did you know that when you eat a burger from McDonald's or Burger King or any of these fast food chains, that your one patty will have the meat of 100 cows in it?
It's also processed into one big slurp.
I couldn't believe that.
Like a slurry of meat produce. Yeah. You know, when you eat some of these, you know, cheaply priced, industrially produced sausages or whatever, you know, to source it back to the animal that it came from would be impossible. Like a major...
Like a needle in a
DNA
haystack.
test, or, I mean, it would be terrible.
Yeah.
So, you think then that the world as a whole is moving towards a better sense of diet and food values.
There's definitely more awareness around food, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much. I mean, you go to the supermarket, and I don't know. Here in Germany, it's really nice because there are like the classifications of the meat. There's like 1, 2, 3, and 4. 4 being organic, 3 being, I don't know, very good but not organic. 1 and 2, 1 would be, I'm just guessing, coming from like, I don't know, some plant. Yeah. Yeah. But still, people buy that.
Yeah. So I did a bit of research because I thought, well, this must be manifested in the statistics for food consumption. But I was a little bit surprised to see. So I'm not going to spend a load of time because otherwise we just get bogged down in data. But I assume that meat consumption worldwide would be going down because more people are becoming,
vegan, vegetarian.
But it's not true. Meat consumption continues to go up. So from 1990 to the current date, meat consumption has more than doubled.
But do you know why?
Well, because the population has also
Well, that's
up.
Part of it, but also because people are becoming wealthier. They can afford it now.
Yes,
whereas in the past, they had to rely on other things.
Yeah. So I think the move towards more of a meat-free diet tends to be in those countries where they can afford to, because it's expensive to drop the sort of normal diet. So, and those countries that are leading in terms of fads, because it is a bit of a movement as well. Meat consumption continues to rise. Who do you think? So, Statista looked at a number of countries: China, Brazil, Mexico, Indonesia, Germany, the UK, India, and the US of A. And which of those is the country that is the most meat-free, do you think, of the countries?
So I did some research as well, and in my research, the country that ate the least amount of meat per capita was India.
Yeah. So 48% of Indians follow what's classified as a meat-free diet.
That's because they're Hindus, and they're in Hinduism and they don't eat
and
beef.
That represents 25% vegetarians, because meat-free as a category includes vegetarians, but also people who eat fish and other kind of definitions.
Yeah.
But almost half the population, for religious reasons, are meat-free.
And they're healthy, they're fine, they substitute with other things.
I was surprised that in the USA, 15% of the population are meat-free, because you would assume that the USA they'd still be eating the burgers and the...
I mean, given that they burned down the Amazon jungles to make beef for America, it's a bit shocking that 15% is a big number. Actually.
Yeah, which is the same as China.
Okay.
Again, China, would I have assumed they'd be meat-free?
No.
No, I didn't expect that.
I would have thought that they liked
meat. Eat a lot of poultry and chicken products. Germany, 12%. So not bad, but not...
Nowhere near. I mean, Germans do love their Wurst and the meat and a big hunk of meat next to the potatoes and stuff. So in my research, I found that which country do you think eats, or which nationality eat the most meat per person?
Most meat? Oh, most meat per person, or most... I would have, again, gone with the USA.
It's actually Australia.
Australia.
Apparently,
well, that makes sense, doesn't it?
200 pounds per person every year.
My God.
They take the first place in the world, according to my source here.
But again, that makes sense, because if you think about the Australian culture and the barbie...
the
weather,
barbie.
then... and I wonder does Australia have the ability to grow a lot of vegetables? I don't think it is a great...
agricultural.
Probably has to import quite a lot of its produce.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But they have vast amounts of land that they can raise cattle on. Yeah. That's true.
Are you one of those people who's adopted the sort of plant-based foods then? Would you go and buy... I saw bacon that was plant-based bacon.
Yeah, no.
That tastes like bacon.
No.
or chicken that isn't chicken but is actually plant-based?
No, I don't do any of that. But what I do is I don't drink milk. So I do buy coconut milk and almond milk and things like that. Yes, that's like milk alternatives, but no.
I don't know what you think about this, but I question this idea that, okay, you can't have bacon, so we're going to give you plant-free bacon. Because if the point is to eat bacon, then eat bacon.
Yeah, but they want the taste without the guilt of it, and I understand that.
But then that's kind of artificial sort of thing. But yeah. If you look in the United States, the sales of plant-based foods
skyrocketed, or
it is going up. But I thought that people were using, plant-based foods was people buying alternatives to meat. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to eat sausages, so I'm going to buy a plant-based sausage. Mm-hmm. But that's not where the growth in plant-based foods is coming. Actually, it's more related to what you were saying about replacing milk.
Yes.
So dairy seems to be the area more than meat.
Yeah.
So growth in the last couple of years, creamer, 24% growth. Ready-to-drink beverages, 17%. Butter, eggs, protein liquids and powders, milk, cream cheese, sour cream. They're all the ones that are growing rapidly.
Yeah.
Yogurt. But things like meat, cheese, ice cream, those markets are actually shrinking. So it's almost like the fad in plant-based meat as we've hit that peak, and people have sort of decided that's not where they want to go.
Yeah.
So I think it's both good and bad. That I think it's good that people are looking for alternatives to dairy, because there's a lot of farming of a lot of industrialization of dairy farming.
Yeah, I think, and they also say like this was intended for baby cows. It's not intended for human beings. So why are we? But at the same time, it is a very good source of a lot of things. I think it has everything except for, I can't remember what it was. Like milk is almost a complete kind of source of all kinds of nutrients.
Well, if you're gonna, we said about what 3 things would you have in your fridge or in your kitchen?
Milk.
I would have potatoes, milk, and eggs.
Yeah,
those are those are my 3 staples.
Okay, even now.
Yeah, even now.
Wow.
I'm so glad I'm not lactose intolerant.
Yes.
I had a friend to stay, and she was gluten intolerant, lactose intolerant, vegan. I mean, what do you eat?
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
what can I give you?
It's so difficult when
tabbouleh would have been good.
Yeah.
Hummus would have been good.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, those two would not have. Okay, like the bit of grain in the salad would have gluten in it. That's true.
And it made the whole experience of, say, going out for a meal was actually quite stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because you've got to interrogate the waiter or the waitress about what's
in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite different. But anyway, having said to you, just last bit on data. So having told you that the worldwide market for meat hasn't declined and continues to go up, at the same time, the worldwide sales of organic food also is going up.
For sure.
Everything's going up.
Yeah.
Because what that means is, the world's just consuming more and more of everything because the population's growing.
Yeah.
And like you say, more affluent society. People can buy more meat, but they can also buy more
better
organic
meat.
Food.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel like there are more allergies today, or do you feel like people back then also had allergies and issues we just didn't know? We thought they were poorly.
Oh, good question. Part of me says, when I was young, we just put up with it.
Yes,
I think people might have had gluten intolerance or lactose intolerance, and they were just, a whinger.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, skin disorders or whatever, or. But I do think
they just have a bad stomach. They don't know why.
I do think there's a lot more of it now because people are much more aware of the impact of diet and the environment around them on their health. So I think it is real. but I also think that there's a little bit of evolutionary change as well, which I think because kids are not crawling around in the dirt all the time, or eating
natural things from the ground.
Food, I think that must have some impact on their ability to be immune or to fight off.
It's funny when I was in Syria, I did not know what a nut allergy was. I did not know what gluten was. Everybody ate everything, and we were all fine. But and then I came here, and allergies are real. I mean, you do see people when they eat something, either their like throat swells up and they go like they're almost dead, or it's serious stuff. And you wonder if it's because of the industrialization of Europe and America that happened a lot faster and sooner than it happened in the Middle East. Or if it's the diet that's to blame. I don't know. I don't know right now in Syria. I haven't been there for a long time. I don't know if people are allergic to these things, but I don't think so.
It's a really strange phenomenon. It's a bit like, there are far more children now who've got special needs.
Yes.
There were no children who had special needs.
That we were aware of.
That we were aware of. There was always, always very hyperactive.
Yeah.
He's a cheeky little boy.
Energetic.
In other words, he's probably got ADHD and there was always somebody who was, he's nice, but he's a simple boy. In other words, he had learning difficulties. He's not really taken to reading. He's dyslexic.
Exactly.
So there was a lot of undiagnosed, but I think also, we've just become a much more, what's the right word? Needy. We're not immune in the same way that we used to be.
We're not as resilient as we used to be, I think.
Everybody's living in centrally heated houses.
Yeah.
Everybody's not exposed and doesn't have to build up that immunity in the way that maybe they did.
I think also back in the day, now this is not related to food, but just to quickly, like if somebody was dyslexic back in the day, then the teacher gave them a few words and said, you have to write this 100 times or 200 times until you really got it. And then you do the same thing. So that meant that they actually got over it by intensive training. Yeah. Whereas now we're like, no, have mercy on this child. This is torture. They have a disorder and they just can't do it. And so we accept that. And I'm really not sure which one is better. I'm sure that back then
I wouldn't advocate torture in any way, whichever way we look at it, just on record there.
I'm sure it was traumatic.
As a schoolboy, I've already talked about my school days. If there was somebody who was struggling reading, they get beaten on the head or caned.
That's terrible.
For being bad at reading. You need to go home and practice more. Yeah. So that sort of terror, I don't think that's a really good solution for dyslexia.
No, I don't think so. But I think there are some things we could do about it with extra effort, you know, and that we don't do that today because it is traumatic and it's very hard. And let's focus our energies on something else. Yes. Anyway, this was not related to food. Yeah.
Why don't we have some readings? Because I know that you've got some.
I've got some
poetry.
Really...
I've got a couple of interesting things to read as well. Because we could probably gas on about our favourite foods for a while, but maybe some literature. Let's go there.
So I have two poems. They're quite long, but I'm not going to read more than that, not to bore anyone with a long reading.
You would never bore us with a long reading. Aww. Long readings are good.
So I have two.
Better than listening to us talking.
To just, blabbering about our foods. So I have two. One of them is a bit... might be triggering to people, so I don't think I want to start with that now, but I would like to read it later and give people a warning that it's a bit triggering about food. But this one is really cool. It's from I've read bits of that book before. It's The Prophet by Gibran.
We've talked about that book before.
Exactly. And it's when this prophet is about to leave, everybody in the town comes and asks him questions. So so it starts here with, so it's on eating and drinking from the prophet.
And when was this
So I think this was in the 20s, I think 24 or something, 1920, something like this, 23, probably 1923. I'm just going out on a different
Yeah, because that's quite interesting because our attitudes towards food and drink in 1920s were probably quite different to how they are now.
But this was written in English, even though Gibran wrote in both languages, so this one was written in English. So, then an old man, a keeper of an inn, said, "Speak to us of eating and drinking." And he said, "Would that you could live on the fragrance of the earth and like an air plant be sustained by the light. But since you must kill to eat, and rob the newly born of its mother's milk, to quench your thirst, let it then be an act of worship. And let your board stand an altar, on which the pure and the innocent of forest and plain are sacrificed for that which is purer and still more innocent in man. When you kill a beast, say to him in your heart, by the same power that slays you, I too am slain, and I too shall be consumed. For the law that delivered you into my hands shall deliver me into a mightier hand. Your blood and my blood is naught but the sap that feeds the tree of heaven. And when you crush an apple with your teeth, say to it in your heart, your seeds shall live in my body, and the buds of your tomorrow shall blossom in my heart, and your fragrance shall be my breath, and together we shall rejoice through all the seasons. And in the autumn, when you gather the grapes of your vineyards for the winepress, say in your heart, I too am a vineyard, and my fruit shall be gathered for the winepress. And like new wine, I shall be kept in eternal vessels. And in winter, when you draw the wine, let there be in your heart a song for each cup. And let there be in the song a remembrance for the autumn days, and for the vineyard, and for the winepress.
Wow, that's lovely. Do you think that one of the problems today, and maybe with the issues with diet, is because we don't have enough of that sort of respect and appreciation for where our food has come from.
Yeah.
And
we don't revere the land.
The effort to create it.
Yeah. Because it comes to us almost ready-made. That's also true, that we don't spend so much time making our own wine or baking our own bread. You know, it just comes to us in a package like everybody else. And I think what I really like about this poem, though, or this part of the book, is this idea of I'm not eating you because you're inferior to me.
Yes.
I'm eating you because, that's the cycle of life, and we all kind of eat each other. And I will be consumed too, underground ants will eat me, and I'm part of the cycle.
Yeah.
And I also like this unity with nature is also nice. Like we are all one big thing. And also, like you said, being grateful for what you have. And this is something in the Middle East and in Syria that is really important, is when you eat, you say Alhamdulillah, which is like, thank you for this.
Yeah.
And also when somebody gives you food, when you're done, you say daime. And daime means, I hope this blessing remains. I hope this blessing doesn't leave your house.
Yeah.
And then they say health, which means then
I'm not a religious person, but I really do like that tradition where people, hold hands before the meal and give some sort of thanks for the food they're about to eat.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it is good to stop and just think about that.
Yes.
Apparently, just linked to that, 2/3 of children in the UK do not know the origins of even basic foods, such as beef coming from a cow or ice cream coming from milk. I mean, I remember having a discussion with some kids and trying to persuade them that spaghetti grew on trees. and a number of...
They bought it.
Yeah. It gets harvested and dried in different levels.
You're terrible.
Less than 1 in 4 children knew that burgers originate from cows. 29% believe they came from pigs. 2/3 correctly identified the source of potato crisps as potatoes, while others believed they were from rabbits, plastic, or sheep.
What?
43% correctly identified the source of ice cream as milk or cream, while others thought it was made with cheese, air, fish, or potatoes. Overall recognition of vegetables was high, but only 44% were able to identify a turnip.
I don't know if I would be able to be honest.
So anyway, that was a survey done about 10 years ago, but it just piqued what you said, or what that poem said about we don't do a great deal, do we, in school to get the children's hands dirty in terms of
make their own
food and ingredients and sourcing or whatever.
It's also hard to recognize where food comes from when everything we eat has 100 or more ingredients in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there are things we can't even pronounce in the food that we eat.
Yeah.
Which is really tricky.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was reading an article in National Geographic, and maybe we'll put the link on the notes, because it's a really long article. Mm-hmm. But the basic gist of it was talking about the evolution of diet and how over the course of thousands of years our diet has changed. But basically the premise was that experts are saying that modern humans should really be looking to eat the food that was on the menu in the Stone Ages. Because both the food that was on the menu and the way that it was eaten is basically what we're sort of aiming for now. So, you know, if you did eat meat, but it wasn't processed.
Yes.
It was just stuck on a bit of fire.
Yeah,
so
a bit of salt.
It was as fresh as you can have. You know, fruit and berries and stuff like that were handpicked, and they were fresh. We did eat beans and pulses and stuff like that, and grain, but it was coarse, and so it was better for our digestion system. And we
ate what was around us. We didn't import things from other areas that are not suited to us.
Absolutely. So it's not an article that is saying we should become vegetarian, because we weren't vegetarian. We used to eat fish, we used to eat meat, but we didn't have large industrial farms that were pumping, you know, the animals there with antibiotics and other things to help them grow more, living in terrible conditions. Yeah. We hunted. Or in small farmsteads, we would keep a small number of creatures which we were rearing in order to then eat. And they were as much as a part of the family community as the humans, and they were loved and they were cared for until the time came. And, you know, it's very much like the poem that you read. Yeah. We kind of revered the fact that, you know, now is the time when we're going to eat this goat.
Which is a bit...
I told you about my holiday home in France. Yeah. But next door there was a farm, and they kept a dairy herd, and they also had some beef cattle, and then they also kept some small animals. Mm-hmm. And of course the whole thing was geared towards production and consumption, but it was done with such love that you know, there's no way they were ever going to be vegetarians, but they loved the cows that they kept on the farm. It was just wonderful to see the relationship between them and those animals.
But then how can you kill something that was like a pet?
Well, I'll give you an example. Yeah. So I remember my daughter being so excited because in the yard of the farm there were about 8 rabbit hutches. Mm-hmm. It was like the evolution of rabbits. Yeah. Because in the left-hand hutch there was a small baby-sized rabbit, and in the right-hand one, the 8th one, there was this very big rabbit ready to be eaten. Oh. And that's basically what they did. Okay. But they still loved them and cared for them during that process. Yeah. And somehow that meant that when it came to eat the animal, it was special. It was kind of celebrated in some way.
And you didn't waste it, and you made sure you cooked it well. You know, it wasn't this commercial thing that we have.
Everything went to use, including the fur and everything. Yeah. So, if you want a nice lucky rabbit paw, I can
Thank you very much.
Find you one. Yeah. But, so no, I kind of understand that. So, we should be heading backwards in terms of our diet. Yeah. Quite interesting in terms of the sort of evolution of food and when particular foods came into being, because we sort of think of food as being very, very basic until only quite recently, but it's not really true.
No, I mean, I don't know if you're talking about the same thing, but like the lettuce we eat today, the bananas we eat today, they are not what naturally occurred in nature. No. They were engineered for over many centuries until they are what we have now, sweet and big and, you know, all of those things.
And I think our view of that sort of the perfect strawberry and whatever, that is just consumerism gone crazy. Yeah. The amount of waste of food that is thrown away because it doesn't comply to the standard of bendiness of a cucumber or a banana or the shininess of an apple. I think that's really terrible.
Yes, it is.
But no, I was thinking more about, you know, because having looked at that article that said we should go back to prehistoric time, not prehistoric time, to Stone Age times.
Yeah.
eat dinosaurs. That would be good. But I was thinking, so how long ago? Everybody sort of thinks that history starts 2,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. But the first evidence of, for example, cooking chicken.
Yeah.
How long ago do you think we were cooking chickens?
3,000 years ago?
It sounds like a decent guess.
Mm-hmm.
250,000 years ago is the first evidence of hearths appearing and evidence of chicken having been cooked. 40,000 years ago, the first evidence that we were eating fish.
Okay. Wow.
So
we ate chickens before we ate fish.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Because in my mind, you've sort of got this idea that meat consumption and cooking in that sense is a relatively modern invention and came with the, invention of being able to roast a chicken.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago. Earliest estimate for the invention of cooking as such is between 2.5 and 1.8 million years ago.
Oh, wow. So
we've been cooking for a long time.
We have.
And we've been eating meat for a long time and vegetables. So I completely agree with the move towards a better diet.
Yeah.
But I find it quite difficult to say, as humans, we have a responsibility now to be vegan or vegetarian.
To stop eating a whole big part of our diet that we evolved on.
For 2 million years we've been eating meat. But I do agree that the way we eat meat, the way we farm meat, the way we add things to it,
that has to be changed.
Should be changed, but I don't think the basics.
Apparently the future is bugs.
Yes, insects.
That's going to be the meat we're going to eat. Yeah.
Would you eat insects?
No, I am very, very picky when it comes to meats. So I will not eat frogs. I will not eat insects. I will not eat guinea pig.
Why would you not eat a frog? What is it about a frog?
I don't know. Very good question.
Would you eat...
escargot? No.
Would you eat a fish?
Yes.
A small fish?
Yeah.
A sprat?
Yeah.
Or a little fish?
Yeah.
Sardine?
I love sardines.
It's not that much difference apart from if you kiss one, it turns into a prince.
I don't know. I think maybe the idea also of killing the whole animal for 2 scrawny legs, I think that also kind of puts me off.
Yeah, I'm not sure a frog's head's going to taste that nice.
Yeah, or the belly, or so I don't know, maybe that's what it is. But no, I'm not very adventurous with meat. I'll try everything, but not when it comes to meat. There are things that I won't.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it?
Did you know that?
Horse.
Yeah, I would not eat that.
Or dog.
Absolutely not. Actually, it's very funny that you were mentioning this, because in the Quran, and even though I'm not religious, but there are some things that stay with you. So I still don't eat pork.
Yeah.
But also in the Quran, it says very clearly you're not allowed to eat animals, like carnivore animals. So any animal that eats another animal, you're not allowed to eat that. That's unhealthy for you.
Yeah. But is it to do with health, or is it actually... Was it a more of a to do with the risks associated with those foods when the rules were made?
I'm guessing it has to do with health, because shall I read to you this part from the Quran?
Yeah.
It says, "Prohibited to you are dead animals, blood, the flesh of swine, and that which has been dedicated to other than Allah." So if it was not slaughtered with the name of Allah on it, you're not allowed to eat it.
Yeah.
And that's the idea of non-halal food. And those animals killed by strangling, or by a violent blow, or by a headlong fall, or by the goring of horns, and those from which a wild animal has eaten, except what you are able to slaughter before its death, and those which are sacrificed on stone altars. And prohibited is that you seek decision through diving arrows. That is grave disobedience. This day, those who disbelieve have despaired of defeating your religion, so fear them not, but fear me. This is him talking to Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
This day I have perfected for you your religion and completed my favor upon you and have approved for you Islam as a religion. So, but whoever is forced by severe hunger with no inclination to sin, then indeed Allah is forgiving and merciful.
Yeah.
So it's saying that there are some things that are, I'm guessing this is because of health issues. You're not allowed to eat an animal that was dead before you came to it. You're not allowed to eat an animal that was eaten from by a wild animal, things like that. Or what's really important about halal meat is that when they slaughter an animal, the blood has to flow out of it before you're allowed to eat it.
Yeah.
And that's why animals that were killed by electric shock, you know, they're not allowed actually in Islam.
Wow.
But funnily enough, we don't know, because I think the meat industry has been so industrialized all over the world. I'm guessing even in the Middle East.
Exactly. Really is
I think people just eat whatever and they don't know what they're eating, really.
Yeah. Because the Jewish religion, of course, don't eat pork. A pig, because it's got a split hoof.
Yeah.
And it doesn't chew the cud, therefore it is unclean for you. You shouldn't eat the flesh or touch the carcass. Right? But I also understood the real reason, is it the real reason? But it's also, you know, back in ancient times, we didn't have fridges to put the meat anywhere cool, and pork was the meat that went off very quickly.
That spoiled the fastest.
It was the primary cause of the disease trichinosis.
I didn't know that.
And so it made people sick and gave them food poisoning or caused death. So making pork the one meat that the Jewish religion couldn't eat was also a bit of a health precaution.
Yeah.
Because in a way, you know, what's the difference between eating pork or lamb or beef?
Maybe that's the only thing. I mean, I don't know. Some people say because pigs eat their own feces and stuff. I don't know if that's true.
I don't know, but I mean, I think something like beef, it lasts longer. Especially if it's in a warmer climate, it keeps longer than pork, which becomes rancid more quickly.
I didn't know that.
But it's interesting about food taboos, isn't it? I don't think I ever had a food taboo.
No, anything was fair game.
It was all good.
Before we continue on, like in Islam as well, I found something really interesting. So usually when I quote something from Islam, I only bring things from the Quran. The Quran is a very concise book, and there's only one book around the world that's called the Quran, which I like. But then there are the sayings of Muhammad, the Prophet.
Yes.
And I tend not to use those because those are not 100% proven that they were all his, you know. But there is one that I actually really like, so I'm going to read that to you. It says, he said, Prophet Muhammad, no human being has ever filled a container worse than his own stomach. The son of Adam needs no more than a few morsels of food to keep up his strength. Yeah. Doing so, he should consider that a third of his stomach is for food, a third for drink, and a third for breathing.
Wow. Gosh.
And so he was very clear about, and also in another saying he said, we are people who don't eat until we're hungry, and we don't keep eating until we're full. Yeah. So he did caution against overeating, which is, of course, wouldn't fly these days. And if he came back...
A little bit of a stoic attitude towards food.
If he came back now to see what people did in Ramadan after they have fasted the whole day in the name of Allah, and then they binged, and the amount of food that was wasted in Ramadan and eaten, I think he would be appalled.
Yeah. Well, that's very consistent with the stoic beliefs on food.
Yeah.
So Stoics don't really class food as good or bad. It's like a lot of things, they were called indifferent. Mm-hmm. Stoics were indifferent to things like food, health, illness, wealth, poverty, reputation, life, death.
Indifferent?
Because it's not about the thing, it's how one deals with it that's important. So, for example, food, the Stoics would not say, it's really bad to eat a lot. You eat a lot if you're really hungry.
Okay.
It's more to do with how Stoics held that food in itself doesn't really contribute to your happiness, or the opposite. It's how you obtain it, prepare it, serve it. All the things that reveal your character are the things that are more important than the food itself.
Very interesting.
And I think in a way that's true, isn't it? So gluttony. I think the Bible doesn't talk about eating as sin.
Mm-hmm. No.
We should eat and we should share our food, but gluttony is a sin.
It's a sin. So overdoing it is a sin.
Yeah.
But the food itself.
So being frugal, being temperate, are important in Stoicism, like they are, in the Quran, I guess.
Yeah.
Because they indicate a kind of set of virtues or personality traits.
Yeah.
You don't want to overindulge because that's a sign of gluttony or
and also bragging, which is also very frowned upon. Did you find something in literature? I know you talked about Oliver Twist before.
Oh, Charles Dickens is, as you know, is one of my favorite authors. And if you want a snapshot of food in the era of Charles Dickens, you just need to read any of his books because there's always just
big references to books,
superb descriptions of either the horrific food that the underclass were eating or the sumptuous gluttonous behavior of people overindulging and those sort of descriptions. But so I love that. It's really interesting, isn't it, when you read historical literature, you get so much from the descriptions of the food.
Absolutely.
Or how they were eating, or the setting for food. Really interesting. But as a child, I remember I was a bit of a child actor, and I was in the musical Oliver.
Oh, wow.
Oliver Twist.
Okay.
Played Oliver. Please, sir.
You played Oliver?
Yeah.
Look at you.
Please, sir, can I have some more? What? Please, sir, can I have some more? And this was a prequel. This was basically the prequel to the fantastic song called "Food, Glorious Food." I don't know if you know that song.
I think I've heard it, but not really properly.
Musical written by Lionel Bart and another chap, John Powell. I'm just going to read you some of the lyrics because it's great. So this is in a Victorian workhouse, and was it Victoria? Might even be before Victorian times. And so these poor kids are imagining the food that the wealthy are eating. So it starts, is it worth the waiting for? If we live till 84, all we ever get is gruel. Every day we say our prayer, will they change the bill of fare? Still we get the same old gruel. There's not a crust, not a crumb can we find. Can we beg? Can we borrow or cadge? But there's nothing to stop us from getting a thrill when we all close our eyes and imagine food, glorious food, hot sausage and mustard. While we're in the mood, cold jelly and custard, peas pudding and saveloy. What next is the question? Rich gentlemen have it, boys, indigestion. And it goes on in that way, but really, really fantastic.
So they dream of indigestion.
They dream of being so full of these, very Victorian style food. Yeah. Peas pudding and saveloy. Very London, very of its time.
Cool.
But I like that. There's a great scene as well. It's in the movie as well. Great to watch.
I'll have to watch that again. I watched it as a child, but I don't think it was a musical. I think it was just a movie for children.
Yeah.
So I think we're kind of running out of time.
Yeah, we're not far off, are we?
What
else have you got to read?
I have this poem called "The Diet" by Carol Ann Duffy, and she was the British Poet Laureate in May 2009. She's a very, very important poet, and when you listen to the poem, you'll know why.
Yeah.
I just want to say that this is about eating disorders, so this might be triggering, so maybe you can skip ahead if you don't want to hear it, but I think it's quite important.
Yeah. And
also the image, this continuous metaphor that she uses is amazing.
Yeah.
So, it's called The Diet. The diet worked like a dream. No sugar, salt, dairy, fat, protein, starch, or alcohol. By the end of week 1, she was half a stone shy of 10 and shrinking, skipping breakfast, lunch, dinner, thinner. A fortnight in, she was 8 stone. By the end of the month, she was skin and bone. She starved on, stayed in, stared in the mirror, svelter, slimmer. The last apple aged in the fruit bowl, untouched. The skimmed milk soured in the fridge, unsupped. Her skeleton preened under its tight flesh dress. She was all eyes, all cheekbones, had guns for hips, not a stitch in the wardrobe fitted. What passed her lips? Air, water. She was anorexia's true daughter, a slip of a girl, a shadow dwindling away. One day, the width of a stick, she started to grow smaller, child-sized, doll-sized, the height of a thimble. She sat at her open window, and the wind blew her away. Seed small, she was out and about, looking for home. An empty beer bottle rolled in the gutter. She crawled in, got drunk on the dregs, started to sing, down, out, nobody's love. Tiny others joined in. They raved all night. She woke alone, head splitting, mouth dry, hungry and cold, and made for the light. She found she could fly on the wind, could breathe, if it rained, underwater. That night, she went to a hotel bar that she knew and floated into the barman's eye. She slept for hours, left at dawn, in a blink, in a wink, drifted away on a breeze. Minute, she could sit herself from here on in, go where she pleased. She stayed near people, lay in the tent of a nostril like a germ, dwelled in the caves of an ear. She lived in a tear, swam clear, moved south to a mouth, kipped in the chap of a lip. She loved flesh and blood, swallowed in mud, under fingernails, dust in a fold of fat. On a waist, but when she squatted, the tip of a tongue, she was gulped, swallowed, sent down the hatch in a river of wine, bottoms up, cheers, fetched up, in a stomach just before lunch. She crouched in the lining, hearing the avalanche munch of food. Then it was carrots, peas, courgettes, potatoes, gravy and meat. Then it was sweet. Then it was Stilton, Roquefort, Weisslackerkäse, Gex. It was smoked salmon with scrambled eggs, hot-boiled ham, plum flan, frog's legs. She knew where she was all right, clambered onto the greasy bread of a goose, opened wide, then chomped and chewed and gorged inside the fat woman now, trying to get out.
Gosh. It's not a nice poem, is it?
No, it's not.
It's quite shocking about that sort of decline into the despair of anorexia.
Yeah.
I have known a number of
Students
and yeah, but actually a couple of my friends had partners who were anorexic, or were recovering from anorexia, and it's a horrible thing.
It is.
Horrible thing, and so terrible that, you know, as a root cause, that sort of social pressure, for body image to be such a thing that it would cause you to abuse yourself in that way. It's so terrible, isn't it?
To be really honest with you, I'm very glad that I have only boys and not a girl, because because I have issues with body image and stuff. I mean, I was never anorexic. I struggle with the other side of it, not binge eating as such, but like I'm always on a diet basically. And if I had a girl, I think I would have infused her with such ideas, and I'm so glad that I try
with Georgie to celebrate food. Celebrate food, and, you know, try and keep her off stuff that's not healthy food. But it certainly wouldn't be, you know, you can only have a small portion because we don't want you to get fat. Sort of thing. A few stats.
Yes.
At least 30 million people in the United States have an eating disorder.
What?
This is a great website if you're looking for background, Centre for Discovery of Eating Disorder Treatment. Households with incomes below the median have a higher prevalence of eating disorders such as anorexia, which surprised me.
That did surprise me too.
You know, I
thought it was the privileged that would suffer from things like that.
I thought it was those for whom body image was, you know, something
a priority.
That's a priority. People with anorexia are more likely to die by suicide than the general population. 53% of people who have an eating disorder also have an anxiety disorder. Anorexia nervosa is more likely to cause death than any other eating disorder.
Oh, wow.
Anorexia is slightly less prevalent amongst the black community, but when it's present, it takes longer for them to receive a diagnosis.
Of course.
67% of people with anorexia, this is an important one, have a traumatic event that precipitates their eating disorder. So it's triggered by some sort of trauma, which I wouldn't be surprised if that's to do with body shaming or being pulled up on your weight or whatever, at a stage where that trigger, that really resonates and causes
I think also the trauma could be that you felt like things are not going the way you want them and you have no control over anything.
Yes,
so the only thing you can
yeah.
control is your own body and your own food, and you bend it to your will until you kind of break it.
Most common contributor to anorexia is body dissatisfaction. So being dissatisfied with your body image.
Because you're comparing it to the mold that society puts there.
So it is terrible, isn't it, that food, what we eat, should have such a traumatic and transformative effect for people, when it really is something we should be...
It should be used for sustenance. Yeah. And maybe a little bit for joy. But I think that's the interesting thing, is like through the evolution of human beings, it became a source of joy when it was just a source of sustenance. Back then they used to hunt and forage and just eat that to stay alive. And now we've turned it into
this... And then people used to commune together to eat.
Exactly.
So food was an extension of community and being together. Whereas that's disappearing now. So it's more about what is the food and what's it doing to me.
Yeah. And then somebody discovered that if I put eggs with flour, with a bit of oil, with a bit of salt, then I can make something really delicious called cake, which is actually unnecessary. Like, if you think about it...
Who invented cake?
I don't know. Somebody...
What a genius. Why were they not given a prize for that?
Well, we can also blame them for being fat.
Yeah.
So, okay, can I give you some random facts about food? I'm going to ask you some questions.
Okay.
And
Give me a quiz.
let me see how much you know about food to end maybe on a high. So, which one do you think is healthier, brown sugar or white sugar?
You're going to trick me because I'm going to say brown sugar.
So, brown sugar is basically the same as white sugar, only with added
brown
molasses.
Put in it.
Molasses.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Because I always assume it's something to do with the refining process.
Yeah, that's what everybody thought. But no, that's why it's stickier.
Yeah.
Okay, another one. Who do you think drinks the most coffee per person in the world?
It's not me. What country?
Yeah.
Per person, Italy.
The Netherlands.
Oh, that makes sense as well.
Which country do you think consumes the most tea per capita?
China.
Turkey.
Turkey, of course.
That makes sense,
Chai, yeah, that's true.
Which country do you think has the most expensive cheese?
Most expensive?
You're not going to know that one.
I'm not going to. I was going to say Germany. It's ridiculously expensive here.
No, Serbia. So in Serbia they have this only one variety that is made from donkey milk, and it costs.
How do you feel about that? Donkey milk.
It costs so much money, something in the thousands.
I've got to seek that out. I love cheese.
But donkey cheese? Would you eat that?
I don't really. I'd eat goat cheese. It's from milk.
Donkey,
it's
I don't
milk.
know. It's really funny. Okay. Which country consumes the least amount of meat per person?
India.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we talked about that before.
We talked about that. In ancient Egyptian days, radishes, onions, and garlic were given to workers as wages. Did you know that? This is just a random fact.
Is that right?
Yeah, let's build the pyramids together.
Here's a bunch of radishes for your efforts.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, this kind of could be a unit of currency, couldn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, I mean, back then.
Especially if they gave them currents, and then that would be currency. Yeah.
Okay, and then which one do you think... Okay, then I can't make a question out of that. I have two pieces of random information
Go on,
for
give me them, yeah.
California is the world's 5th largest supplier of food. I was really surprised to hear
California.
That. Only California.
As a grower?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Gosh.
And then the last one is the Inuits.
Yeah.
How do you think they preserve their food? They put it in fridges to keep it from freezing. Isn't that funny?
That's bizarre, isn't it? I was going to say. There's a lot of frozen meat and vegetables there.
You don't want that, so you put it in the fridge to keep it below freezing temperatures. So I found that very funny. And what is the cheapest vegetable in the world?
The cheapest vegetable... Potato? Cabbage.
That's why a lot of people rely on cabbage.
Cabbage is very underrated.
I think so too. I think it's a very versatile vegetable that could be very
Yeah. I mean,
delicious.
My mother did a great job of putting me off every vegetable.
Oh, great.
Because she was...
Overcooked it.
Yeah, I mean, if you cook the life of it out of it, then a Brussels sprout or a cabbage or cauliflower, they all tasted the same.
Oh, that's it.
It tasted of nothing. But actually, as I got older and learned to cook a little bit better myself, I mean, cabbage, especially if you do it so it's really crispy
season it right,
season it right, is delicious.
It's gorgeous.
But this splat onto the plate, this horrible blob of... And it goes with school dinners as well.
Yeah.
School lunches were just so terrible. It was straight back to the Charles Dickens type of food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Fantastic.
Have you got something to finish with, or shall we say goodbye?
Shall I do you... I'll do you a poem. Mm-hmm. I haven't read a poem for you. Mm-hmm. Just making the link between... I've just talked a bit about my mom in the kitchen and whatever. And I came across a poem called Corned Beef and Cabbage, which is very much my mom.
Okay.
And this poem by a guy called George BILGERE, 2002, is... I like the way it brings together memories of food and memories of home and parenting and whatever.
I mean, that's what we talked about at the beginning, nostalgia and food. It doesn't mean that you loved it so much back then, but you love it now.
I love it. I love the memory of it.
Yeah.
Even if the food was a little bit pants. Yeah. I can see her in the kitchen, cooking up for the 100th time a little something from her limited Midwestern repertoire. Cigarette going in the ashtray, the red wine pulsing in its glass, a warning light meaning everything was simmering just below the steel lid of her smile as she boiled the beef into submission. Chopped her way through the vegetable kingdom with the broken-handled knife I used tonight, feeling her anger rising from the dark chambers of the head of cabbage I sliced through, missing her, wanting to chew things over with my mother again.
Aww.
And I do get that feeling.
Of course.
There are certain things I like to bake, as you know, and I like to bake the things that my mum used to bake, and then she taught me to bake. Oh. She was so pleased that one of her children wanted to learn how to bake cakes. Aww. So I used to bake with her, and memories of following the recipe and my mum telling me what to do and doing that. And then if I cook, simple things like I did some pancakes over the weekend, and I remember my mum gave me the recipe for the pancake mix, and what I did and the sort of bowl that I'm using now is just like my mum used to have. So it's like time travel, really.
Yes.
It's a happy set of memories.
Yeah, it's one of the ways that we keep the dead alive in a way, right? We keep them alive in our memory, and their things that they did and things that they taught us, and that's really cool.
Yeah, indeed. So I think that's probably enough. It's a shame because there's lots more. Maybe we come back to food and do a food part 2, because I wanted to speak to you about food porn.
Oh,
but I don't think we've really got time to
unfortunately not
do that now. But that would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've got to go because I'm starving now.
Yeah, me too. Actually,
my nausea has moved a little bit now.
Okay.
So I think a good cup of tea and.
We'll
maybe,
settle those oysters.
Ginger biscuits.
Yeah.
Always good for you.
Ooh, can I have one of
ginger
those?
nuts.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Fantastic. We'll
Sounds
do that.
good. Okay, good.
Well done. So 20th episode out of the way. Well done, partner.
Crazy. Well done, us. Yeah. And thank you to all of the people who have been listening, because this means a lot to us. Somebody who came with us on this journey for 20 episodes, that's amazing. Thank you so much.
You must be mad. But thank you so much. You deserve a good meal as well.
Yes.
See you soon.
See you. Bye.
We hope that you've enjoyed listening to the readings we chose for you today.
And that our musings have ignited your thoughts.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and those you think would enjoy it.
If you have any thoughts, suggestions, or any kind of feedback, please send us an email using the email in the show notes.
We'd love to hear from you with the words that make you.